Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and thank you for clicking on the video. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And I came back to do this video because there's still a lot of talk about segregation, and Trump is bringing back segregation. And people are concerned. It would be concerning, but I'm going to say unequivocally because I think I'm right. Segregation is not coming back to the United States. America cannot afford to segregate. In the 1960s and all the way up to the 1960s, this country was overwhelmingly white. I just heard this morning. In the 1960s, this country was 92% white. Today, it's 60% or under white. We already aren't getting the work done in America that we need done. That's why they're letting all these illegals in here. America cannot afford to go back to segregation. Now, another concern that black people are having is that they are doing things to try to trigger black people because they want to get black people out there in the streets so they can institute martial law. Well, that might be true too. But one thing about it, modern day black Americans don't know how to protest the way they did back in the day. I remember from my childhood when black people would go into what they call mass meetings. Those mass meetings were for people who were going to participate in the protests to get training because the protest was what? Nonviolent resistance. So they had to have training. You had to commit to not fighting back. Those people didn't fight back even when they sicked the dogs on them, even when they turned the hose on them, even when the police came after them. The men were large in numbers, but they didn't fight back. They didn't fight back because they had committed to not fighting back. And another thing was you didn't just show up at a protest that Dr. King and SCLC was leading. You didn't just show up and join the protest. They had to know who was going to be in that crowd. You didn't just turn up because what's happening now is that they're having a big protest or a big march or something, and these anarchists, people that are coming in from these right wing groups and other organizations to create chaos. Because they were talking about up in, I believe that was Ferguson or in Minnesota, where they had somebody where this whole pile of bricks automatically showed up. And those bricks were for the anarchists to throw into those shop windows and set fires and make it seem like that's what the black people were doing. And that is what they want now because everybody is showing up and people who are not even supposed to be in the march are showing up pretending that they're a part of the protest when they're actually enemies of the protesters sent to disrupt and undermine the protest. So that's another thing, and that's another reason why black people don't need to go out in the streets because you're letting anybody join. And wouldn't it be special if black people went into the streets and these agents come in and create a whole riot and then they come in and declare martial law and blame it on the black people? So everybody is under martial law, but they get to blame it on the black people. See, that's how that would work. Same old, same old. Another thing is that America is too diverse now to try to turn back the hands of time. Many black Americans believe they brought all of these immigrants in to undermine black Americans. What they have done now is work themselves into a corner, and I'm talking about America, and they don't really know what to do. They don't know how to get out. So it seems like they're trying to resort back to segregation. Well, I don't doubt that they would go back to segregation if they thought it would work, but it's not going to work. It's just not going to work in this day and age because America is still about as segregated as it's going to be. It's still not really integrated. We're still not a fully integrated society, but it's about as segregated as it's going to be. Now I'm going to change the subject for a minute. I want to talk about this executive order that Donald Trump supposedly has repealed, this government contracts thing. See, it is also the case that when this bureaucratic type government wants to do something and they don't want the American people to know what they're doing or what they're talking about, they'll put one thing out there for you to bite on so you won't pay attention to what they're doing behind the scenes. Now, let me just break it down. Government contracts are big business in the United States. Billions of dollars are paid out in government contracts. Now, that's what this is all about, in my opinion. All of that business about segregated restaurants and segregated restrooms and all of that, that's just a smokescreen. Now, hear me out. Government contracts are worth billions, probably trillions of dollars. Now, if you get a government contract, you make massive amounts of money. But what they're talking about with those contracts, what they really are saying is that they don't have to award the contracts to any non white people, that they can go back like it was in the 60s and white people can get all of the contracts. President Johnson's executive order said they had to set aside a small amount for minority contractors. And those right wingers have been belly aching and pitching fits ever since. Government set asides, government set asides. That's what they're talking about. And we're talking about massive amounts of money. Anything that you can think about, they would need, just about anything, they will have to have a contract. There are 9,292 federal government offices in the United States as of March 2025. These federal buildings house offices of the United States government that provide services to state and city level population centers. Now, that many government offices in the United States, and all of them contract out jobs for janitorial and custodial services, office supplies and furniture. They contract out the people who are going to supply paper and pens and pencils and chairs and desks and computers. They contract out jobs for security, and the biggies are construction and renovation and many, many more. Many, many more. And the people who get these contracts make big money because they supply these services to sometimes to the whole region. So we're talking about really, really big money. And these right wing Republicans have been upset about these contracts ever since President Johnson signed that executive order, and they have been trying to get it overturned. So, yes, they want people to think this is about a water fountain or a restaurant that people don't care about anyway. But this is about those government contracts. This is about the money. This is how they keep white men in this country propped up. This is how white women became minorities. So they could get in on those contracts and other positions that these right wingers wanted to stay in the hands of white people. So by Trump repealing that executive order, what he's saying is that you can exclude these non-white contractors. You don't have to award black people and non-white people these government contracts. But look over here where we're telling you we're going to resegregate. Don't look over there where we're getting all the contracts. That's what it's all about. That's what I see. Because I don't really think that anybody cares about these water fountains. As somebody said, there are no water fountains out there anymore anyway. And as far as going to restaurants and things like that, black people can go to their own restaurants. And even the schools are already segregated. So what is it left to segregate? But that's what it is. It's about money. This country runs on money, and they don't want to share any of it with anybody. So again, that's how white women became minorities. When they say white women benefited from affirmative action and white women benefited from DEI, that's what it's about. So let's just say that both the husband and wife qualify for government contracts. So the husband could get a contract for building and renovation, and the wife, as a minority, could get a contract supplying office supplies. That's millions of dollars coming into that household. So I do believe that this is about those right wingers holding on to government money. And as I said before, America cannot afford to segregate. You have to look at a lot of factors, and you also have to look at the reality of what America is now. Black American culture is America's number one export. So you're going to discriminate against the people who are driving your culture? Really? Does that honestly make sense? They would like to do that. This is their ego talking. They would like to do that, but they can't afford it. Now, here in the South, when the schools integrated, what we found out was that when a school becomes more than 30% black, I'll just say black, that's when the white people start running. When they're not in a sizable majority, like 70%, that's when they get scared and start running. Well, now they're at about 60%. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do something, bully everybody or threaten everybody to try to get things back so they can be in the majority. But according to their own historians, this low birth rate that they're experiencing is irreversible. So they're going to have to bond with the idea that they can't turn back the hands of time. That's what they would like to do, but it's just not possible. So black people are gonna have to do what the Kenny Rogers song said. You gotta know when to hold and know when to fold. Know when to walk away and know when to run. You never count your money while sitting at the table. There's time enough for counting when the dealing is done. So we just need to wait and see what's gonna happen when the dealing is done. And everybody who feels like they need to run around here like a chicken with his head cut off because they're doing this, they're doing that, and they're saying this, you go right ahead. Because we have put in our time, we have done what we could do, we have tried to get along with these people, we have been good citizens, and we've been good stewards. There's nothing else for us to do. There's nothing else we can do except hunker down and wait for the change, and it will come. Now, that's how I feel about it. If you think differently, let me know. Thank you for listening. Give me a thumbs up and have a good evening.